All right. So H for Hustle podcast. Welcome back. We have Derek Van Ness, the founder of Big Life Financial. Derek, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Jerome. I'm excited to be here and share some good conversation.
Cool. All right. So what would you say you do for a living? If people ask, what do you do for a living? What do you say?
I help people get money out of the way so they can live the life they're here to live. If you want to just make it real simple, but really we help people create financial strategies that work no matter what the market does. We help people pay less in taxes, and we just help them to think from a holistic viewpoint about their finances so that we're aligning finances with what you want to do with your life as much as possible. And that's something that's really empowering and refreshing for a lot of people. So yeah, that's really it. We just bring in strategies that are very different than what most people talk about, not out of the blue. They're rock solid. They're widely used. They're just not the stuff you see on TV, like just follow the green line and don't think. They're a little bit of think for yourself type strategies.
Reduce your coffee consumption. Every financial person wants to tell you not to drink coffee. I don't know what that's all about. That's so weird.
It is. And here's the thing for me, I'm such a big believer that the whole point of money is to have a better quality of life, not to reduce your quality of life so you can have a little bit more money. It's more like have more money so that you can live the life you want to live. Yeah. And listen, I'm not a fan of spending money on things you don't need to, but if you enjoy a good cup of coffee, and I do, it's worth a lot to me to just kind of get things going in the morning, get fired up, get excited for that hour and a half a day, man. I'm sure I can change the world. Right. So I love that feeling. And for me to save a couple of bucks a day, how about if I just turn that into production and make a whole lot more? Because one of the things I live by is you can't shrink your way to greatness.
Yeah.
Right? You have to expand your way. You have to be abundant. You have to get bigger, get better.
Yeah. I'm very big on that. And the reason why I brought that up is because, what's that guy's name? Man, everyone Dave Ramsey. There we go. Everyone talks to him, but he never talks about going out and making more money. It's always playing defense, never offense with defense. It's always one-sided.
Yeah. So I actually just published a video on my YouTube channel about should you follow Dave Ramsey, right? And the synopsis of it is really this. If you're deep in debt, he's going to teach you how to not overspend and how to cut back on a lot of that stuff because you have to. You've dug yourself a hole. And he's really good at getting you out of the hole. But if you want to create a life you love, he's not the guy. I know he talks about financial freedom, and it's this idea that if you don't have any more debt, then you're free to do whatever you want with your life. And that's just simply not true. You still have to have the means to do that. And if you really followed his advice, never took on any debt, you'd never get an education, you'd never buy a car, you'd never buy a house until you could pay cash. But here's the problem. If you don't get the education, you never make any money, so you can never buy a car. Well, then you have to have a job close to home or something, and you could never go out and buy a house. You just never get it going. There is a good place for debt. And so his audience is people who are deep in debt, which is a lot of people.
Yeah.
And if that's you, I think he's a good guy to get you back to zero. But if you want to build wealth, he's not the guy.
Yeah, that's 100% right. Because like you said, you can't shrink your way to greatness, and you can't stay you can't stay small to get big. It just doesn't happen. But the mindset of pulling certain things back, I think is good. But yeah, it's a joke because you're going to need debt to grow. Just with anything. There's companies on Wall Street that have debt that are growing like crazy. So it's just how it happens. But let's go back a little bit. You weren't always the wealth management guy, right? So let's go back. Let's go back to the beginning. How did you get to the way you are here?
Yeah, well, so these two people met, and I'm just kidding. I was thinking to myself, how far back do we want to go?
No. Let's go back to the beginning of your financial journey. When did you decide you wanted to be financially free, and how did you decide to go and do this?
Yeah, I kind of went through two iterations of that. So the first one was, I was working a corporate job, right? And I always knew I wanted to own my own business, but it became really clear a couple of years out of school, I was doing phone sales, right? Mm-hmm. I was, and I knew I needed to learn how to sell, which is why I took that job. But working in a cube every day, just grinding it out under fluorescent lights was the worst.
What were you selling?
I was doing equipment financing. So it was kind of like being a mortgage broker, but we did loans for equipment for businesses, right? Okay. So if they need a new computer system or a new tow truck or a new piece of manufacturing equipment, we did the loans for that. And it's kind of a cutthroat business and it's not really great, but it was really good for me because I got to look at business financials and I worked with thousands of business owners and all of that. And I did about, in the 3 years I worked there, I did about 50,000 cold calls.
Wow.
So I got real comfortable with being uncomfortable, right? Because a lot of that starts off with just someone picking up the phone and you saying, hello, I'd like to talk to the person who handles your equipment financing. And they're like, what are you talking about? And you have to like work through that. So I just got really good at communicating on the phone, building rapport, listening, and just more than anything, just interacting with business owners over and over and over. So, and the reason I took that on was I was scared to death coming out of school of sales. And I think a lot of people who want to start their own business, they're a little bit afraid of communicating and taking charge, and they don't want to be a manipulative person. And I wrote a book on ethical salesmanship, right? Because I don't believe in manipulating people. I definitely believe in find out where the person is, find out where they want to go, and then show them how your product can get them there. And if your product can't get them there, then tell them that and help them find the solution. Because even if they don't buy from you today and you spend some time helping them find a solution, you all of a sudden became one of their go-to people. Hey, I'm not sure who to call for this, but Derek really helped me last time. And I get a ton of clients who call me about things that have nothing to do with what I do. They're just like, hey, I know you're really smart. I need help with this. And a lot of times I can, and a lot of times I can't help them.
And that's huge. And in that piece coming out of college, I recommend everyone who's coming out of college to do a sales job for at least 1 year, because just learning to get rejection is like one of the biggest things. Learning to take a no and being able to walk away or to turn that no into a yes is one of the biggest skills that you're ever going to need. Even if you don't want to be an entrepreneur, even if you just want to be a nurse, just learning how to do that is one of the biggest things, to present yourself, to sell yourself, because sales isn't about selling the product. It's selling you, then whatever the service or product behind it. So where did you get that insight from to like go towards something you're afraid of? Because you knew it in school, you were afraid of sales, but why did you go towards it?
Well, I can't remember exactly, but I definitely remember it got crystallized when I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Okay.
And he talks about in there how he went out and he got a job selling copy machines. He's like, I knew I needed to learn how to sell. And I think he says his rich dad told him that. And I think I knew that before because my father was an entrepreneur. He ran his own construction company.
Okay.
And so I knew that like I need to learn how to talk to people. And I also knew that every business is selling. Like the reason I got a business degree in college, because they asked me, why'd you get a business degree? I'm like, because I don't know what I want to do with my life, but everything's a business. So this is something that I know is going to help me in my lifetime. And that was really why I got that degree. And so I'm not quite sure, but Robert Kiyosaki really solidified that.
Got it. So you made 50,000 calls. At one point you're grinding this out. When do you say like, I'm not sure if this is ultimately for me?
Well, I knew it wasn't for me forever, right? Okay. But I was like, you know what? I'm in a job where I'm learning the skills I need. I'm learning to face my fear. And if you get really good at this job, like the top guys, I mean, this is back in 1998, the top guys were making 7 figures. Yeah. So there was money to be made. And I thought, you know what, if I can even do half as well as them, I'm going to be killing it. And that would make it worth it. But ultimately, I didn't think it was a long-term game for me. I thought this is a stepping stone. This is like me paying my dues. I need to do this to get the skills I need to do what I want with my life.
So did you have something else in your mind that you wanted to do while you were, grinding the phones?
Not really. I just knew that I really loved helping people. I knew that I liked business. I mean, truthfully, when I came out of college, this is going to sound crazy, but I wanted to be a dance instructor because I loved partner dancing, swing dancing, ballroom dancing, all that kind of stuff. Like there's something for me. There's been maybe 3 things in my life that have just really hooked me.
Yeah.
And partner dancing was one of them. I went to this dance with this girl. And they were teaching us how to country dance. And I'd been like a hip hop break dancer, all that stuff prior to that. But there was something about doing it with a partner. And at the end of the song, it was like, hey, we just did that thing together.
Yeah.
And it just like, oh, I loved it. And so I just got sort of obsessed. And so I started taking a bunch of classes. And then when I went to college, we started a team, which has now become a national championship team, which was pretty cool. Wow. But I don't know, man, it just really, really hooked me. So I thought maybe I want to own a dance studio. And then I got out in the real world, because like college dancing is one thing, but like the real world of dance studios, it's pretty heavy duty. It's pretty turn and burn. They hire a lot of people, they fire a lot of people. Half the kids who are teaching the dancing, like they're learning it the day before they teach it to their students. It's I mean, there's a bunch of great studios out there, but a lot of it is really cutthroat. And I just didn't want to be in that business.
You didn't want to turn your passion into a business that you're going to eventually hate at some point.
Well, and it felt like that business. I always have this belief that we want to create money to help people as opposed to using people to get money.
Yeah.
Right. And so I felt like it was on that using people to get money side of the equation. I just didn't like that. I hate to have to take from someone for me to get.
Yeah.
I like to empower people, like make their life better, and they pay me in exchange for that. Yeah.
Got it. So, okay. So you're hitting the phones now. Is there nothing? You're like, dancing's not a good thing. What other business ideas are you thinking about at this point to go to next?
You know, I wasn't really sure, because there was the carrot out there that if I get really good at this job, I can make good money at it. But they were probably 2 years in. I mean, I was like hitting the phones all day, and then I'd go home and I would dream about being on the phones, right? Like, because it was so intense for me for the first year or two. So at one point I hired a coach, a sales coach, and he's the one that kind of opened the door to me. I saw him come in. He did a free training. He was like a Tony Robbins protege. He came in, did a free training for us. And I thought, God, this guy's really cool. And I like this whole training thing, this personal development, get better at your job. I remember paying $187 to go to his 1-day seminar. And I thought that was so much money to like pay someone for me to just sit in a room and have them talk at me. Right. Yeah. Since then, I mean, I've paid $25,000 for a training. I'm currently in 2 trainings where I paid almost $20,000 each for those trainings.
Wow.
Right. So my investing in myself thing has definitely up-leveled since then. But I went to this guy's training and I was like, this is really cool. I like what this guy's doing. I like that he's giving me ideas that make so much sense and would make my life so much better. So I kind of thought maybe I want to do something like that. So I hired him as a coach, and I think I was paying him $200 for 2 calls a month, half an hour each. And as we got talking, things started coming up, and he was just asking me questions about what I wanted in life and where I wanted to go, because he was trying to find what's going to motivate me to be a better salesperson. Right. And what really came out of that was, I don't want to do this job. Right. I really want to do something else with my life. And what I found was, this was long before house flipping was a thing. I grew up in construction. I thought, you know what, if I could buy an ugly house, I could live in it, fix it up, and then sell it. And I could do that 2 or 3 times a year. I could make as much money as I can. I am just like grinding it out, because you can make $30,000-$40,000 a pop. If I could do that twice a year, that's $80,000 a year, which is about what I was making at the time. And I thought that sounds like a whole lot better than getting up at 5:45 every morning and getting home at 7 p.m. and grinding every hour in between.
Yeah.
So that was where the idea of the lights came on. It wasn't like, this is what I want to do for a business. It was like, how can I make some money and not be drowning in all of this work I'm doing?
So it was ultimately just to get away from the amount of work that you were doing and do something that you kind of knew. It was almost like a stepping stone to whatever the next thing was, but you just didn't know what the next thing was. You just knew, I need to get out of this, this phone sales.
Yeah. And to be honest with you, I mean, I don't think I realized it at the time, but I think I was depressed, because on the weekends, all I wanted to do, and I'm 24, all I wanted to do was just go to bars and dance and get blasted and escape through dancing or drinking or socializing or whatever. And I think a lot of people live that way. Looking back on it, it was one of those signs where I was like, I'm really unhappy. I'm trying to escape something here. And I realized that once I started my own business, like all that kind of went away. It's not that I didn't like to go out and have some drinks and dance and all that, but it was different. It wasn't like,
you needed to do. Yeah.
It was like, I want to go out and relax and have fun, but it wasn't like I'm just trying to get away from this and forget everything. So if anybody's listening and you're seeing that pattern in your life, you're not happy probably. So just warning bells. I know nobody's doing that during the pandemic, but if you're sitting at home
and you're drowning in yourself because you hate your remote job you're checking into in your living room, you might want to quit. Or
losing yourself in TV or in gambling or in porn or in whatever it is. Like everybody's got their thing. Yeah. And mine didn't go that far down the rabbit hole, thankfully, and it didn't go on that long, but it was a really good lesson for me about what that kind of escapism looks like. I got to experience it from the inside, and thankfully I didn't suffer too much damage from that.
So how do you go about making this transition? Do you just say, screw it, I quit? Or did you slowly teeter off? Did you find a property? How did that whole thing? And again, this is how long ago? In the early 90s?
This was 2001. So I decided I wanted to do it on my birthday, December 17th, 2001. So we just had the Twin Towers crash. The economy was going in the toilet. And I was like, okay, what I'm doing right now, I can see it's not going to be good for a while. Like a lot of businesses were putting on hold any equipment expansion, all that kind of stuff. Like people might be experiencing this right now, right?
Yeah.
Where they're like, hey, like people aren't buying the stuff that I'm selling right now, which is growth stuff. Maybe they're not growing and it's a little scary in your industry. I was kind of experiencing that. So I stayed home on my birthday. I called in sick, hey boss, I'm kind of sick, but I wasn't. And I got on the internet, and I had already purchased a book on how to like buy a house and fix it up and sell it. But I found this guy who taught it as a system, and it was like $1,500, which is a lot of money for me. But I was like, I read the reviews and people were just like one after another, like, this is the best. And we've made all this money and it's been awesome. And you know how that goes. Some of that's, I'm sure it was true having gone through a system, but for every one of those, there's a bunch of people who didn't do anything with it, but I got it. And I was like, this is my lifeline. I put it on a credit card. I have to do this. So I basically, at that point, I determined I want to quit my job. This is December. And so I was like, I got to get myself educated. So every day on my commute to and from work, I listened to audio CDs that were these trainings, and I would come home and I would do a couple hours of study every single night. And I was just like, I have to learn how to do this. I can't just like jump out there. I need to get myself as educated as I could. Once I thought I knew what I was doing, then I went and got my sole proprietorship, right? My business license, opened a bank account, and I started doing some marketing, but I basically did as much as I could. And it was still hard because all I really had was lunch breaks. And once I got home at night, the education part wasn't as hard because I had the drive, but so I basically started doing everything that I could do for my new business before I quit. And then basically what happened to me was I had a couple of big commissions come in, and I could see like the pipeline is dry.
Yeah.
At this point, me sticking around isn't worth it. It's going to cost me more than it's going to make me to stay at this job.
Yeah.
So at that point, which was May 1st, 2002, I cut the cord and had a pretty interesting experience my first day. But that point I made the jump because I could see that it was, and that's what I tell a lot of people is stay with your job until it's costing you more than it makes you. And for a period of time, you're running both.
Yeah.
But the longer you can do that, the more certain your odds are that you're going to be successful when you do make the jump.
Yeah, because then you can teeter off properly. So you took your big commission checks and now you're in the free market. How do you go about finding this house?
Well, so it's funny because he had a couple things, you can pay for marketing and these things. And I was going to I was doing some of that with letters, mailing to foreclosures and stuff. But he also talked about going out and driving up and down the street looking for vacant properties. Because the thing with a vacant property is somebody is taking on a liability. Somebody's paying taxes on that. If they have a mortgage, they're paying a mortgage.
Yeah.
Vacant houses are dangerous, right? They turn into crack houses or, squatters or a million other things. So usually if you see a vacant house, within 6 months to a year, something's going to happen with that house.
Yep.
So you want to be in touch with those people. So I was like, I'm going to go out and I'm just going to drive up and down these streets. What was real interesting is I woke up that morning and I was so excited, scared to death, but I was like, I'm going to do it. And I went to go get in my truck and I got out of the shower and like half my face wasn't working. I had come down with Bell's palsy.
What?
Which is like it's like the nerve. There's one nerve that controls the whole side of your face. And if that nerve somehow gets freaked out and shuts down, like it looks like you have a stroke, like half your face
just kind of droops down a little bit.
Yeah, it takes a while for it to droop because you still have some of that muscle tone, but the longer it goes, the more it starts to kind of.
Whoa. Do you think that was caused by like your nervousness of going into your new venture?
It was totally stress. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Because I've actually had it a couple times since then. And every time that I've done it, it's been when I was going through something really major and stressful.
Got it. So your face is frozen at this point, and you're trying to find a real estate deal.
Yeah, yeah. I was just like, I don't know what's going on with my face, but I'm going out there anyway. And I just got in my car. I didn't call the hospital, the doctor, nothing. My sister comes over like the next week to go to church, and she's like, "What's going on with your face?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah, that stopped working, but I'm so excited about my business." And she was like, "What's wrong with you?" Like, that's how single-minded of focus I was, because I was scared, man. I didn't know what I was going to do. So I started doing a lot of driving. I started going to every real estate investment club meeting I could. I did mailers. And this is something that I really, truly believe in. There was a point where I went so deep, and I'd never gone so deep into something all consuming, working day and night and putting everything I had into it, where I was afraid. I was like, I feel like I'm going past the brink. Like, I might go crazy. I might never come back from this. But I found that whether it was with my ballroom dancing or with this or with my other businesses, like, when you go to that point, the world shifts.
Yeah.
Like, stuff changes. You're so committed. You're so focused that I feel like the world will bend around. And I don't know if you're just taking so much action and have so much passion that it can't help but happen. But I really believe that the world starts to create itself to help you succeed, because you've burned the ships. You know you're going there.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. Twice in my cleaning business and my door-to-door sales business, it was just like, I was like, there was no turning back. And the more you got so pot committed, things got tough, but then it just seemed like you would say things or write them down, and it just start happening and happening and happening. Or sometimes I think it's just the law of averages. You just put so much in that something has to drip out the other side. And sometimes it comes out in drips, and sometimes it just comes through in floods. So I definitely know what you're talking about, and that level of commitment.
Yeah. And when I talk to entrepreneurs or anybody who wants anything, right? Because in the competitive dancing world, or like even I race sailboats too.
Okay.
Not now that I live in Salt Lake, but when I was in San Diego, like, and I just became so obsessed with it. I was doing it 3-4 days a week, as much as I could get out on the water. Like, the more you focus and commit to something, I do think that everything starts to shift and shape. And like you said, doors appear where there were none before.
Yeah. So how do you find a property? You're so committed. Were you just sending out mailers? You're doing everything. How do you get your first property now?
Yeah. So I had a couple near misses. And if anybody out there wants to be a real estate investor, I've coached a ton of real estate investors, helped a lot of them to be very successful. And the bottom line is this: before you get your first deal, you'll probably miss two you should have gotten.
Yeah.
Right. So I had a couple of those where I went right to the doorstep. I got everything kind of together. I didn't quite know what I was doing, and I kind of screwed it up at the end, or I realized it wasn't a great deal once I really got there. So I had one or two of those. And then finally I got this call from this guy, and he's just like, "Hey, my dad and I are in foreclosure. Here's the deal." Gave me like, "Here's what we owe. Here's what it's worth. It needs some repairs and It's going to foreclosure." And I made a deal with him. I bought a house for $500 down. I took over their mortgage payments, and they moved out, and they wrote me a thank you letter. They were just so happy that I helped them save their credit and move on with their life and have some money to move with and everything. And so they moved out. I paid way too much for that house because it was my first one. I didn't know. I did get a mentor that really helped me. Right before that. From going to the real estate clubs, I found the gal who was running the real estate club, and she kind of says, if you need a mentor, it can be really helpful. Come talk to me. So I went and talked to her. She charged me, I can't remember, a couple $1,000 or something, but she really helped me to realize some of the things I was looking at were garbage.
Yeah.
And some of the things weren't. And so what I can say is, if you're in an industry and you can get a mentor, someone who's walked ahead of you, it is so worth it. Whatever it takes to work with that person will really help, but you have to make sure they have good intentions.
Yeah.
They're not just using you, because there's a bunch of scammers out there. But if you can get a mentor, someone who really knows your industry or your market in real estate, you need to know the local market, because LA is a whole different animal than many other places.
Yeah.
And so she really helped me, and she said, "Yeah, this is a good deal. Go get this one." So I went out, I bought it. We did the minimal amount of repairs. I hired this handyman who was coincidentally a guy I almost bought his house. I went out there and, he wasn't making enough money. So I hired him to do this. And so he did it really cheap and did a great job for me.
So question for you. You got the last big commissions. You have some money, you have reserves. But going out and marketing yourself and going out, you're depleting funds, you're paying for mentors. How are you maintaining yourself through this time?
Well, so I'd saved up a good chunk of money, and I had about $30,000 worth of credit cards that I could use, right?
Okay.
Like a credit available to me. I'd saved up about $20,000 or $30,000 too. Like I did everything. I was like, I know I'm not going to make a bunch of money this year, so I took all my deductions on my W-2 and I was like, put in there like I have 9 dependents, right? So I was paying like no taxes.
No taxes.
Well, I just knew I'm not going to make that much money from this job because I'm only going to work it a couple of months. So I'll just catch the taxes up at the end of the year. And so,
Yeah.
so I did that. And so I was able to save a lot more money. I didn't go, at the time I was doing tons of salsa dancing stuff. I didn't go out dancing. I didn't do anything. I went to the beach and I went running and I worked out. Yeah. I cut all my expenses down to nothing. Then I moved into a really cheap apartment. You got to have a space and a place you can do it. But, I kept my overhead really, really low. And most of my costs was marketing.
Got it. Okay. Because I just hear my audience saying like, how is this guy making all these moves with just without a job?
I made up for a lot of it in just labor, right? So like all these mailers, I wasn't paying a mailing house. Like I was at home with a home printer, printing out this stuff, stuffing my own envelopes, hand addressing every single one of them, live stamp on every single one of them, because that's how they get opened. Yeah. If you just do like bulk mail, nobody opens that.
Got it.
Right. So you want it to look like a letter from your grandma.
Somebody sent that to you. It was personal. Mm-hmm. Got it. So you get the deal. You do minimal repairs. Does it sell? How does that happen?
So I thought it was going to sell right away, and it didn't. It was a for sale by owner. I didn't put it up, use a realtor or anything, because of course I was trying to shave every dollar I could out of it. And it took a while, but I did finally find some people, and they came and they bought it, and it was a little bit of a mess because I didn't fully know what I was doing, but we got through it, and I made like $17,000, which was,
wow.
That was great. That was a huge shot in the arm, because I think my expenses were really minimal. Like to live maybe $2,000 a month. I mean, here again, this is 20 years ago.
Got it.
I think my rent was like $600 a month or something.
So now you did your first deal. You're officially a house flipper now. You're in the business. You're officially in the game. What happens next? Do you jump on the next one and the next one?
So one of the things I learned in my training, and this is a huge mistake that a lot of house flippers make, and I could see how you can make it in a lot of other businesses, is they go out, they find a house, and then they just babysit that all the way through until it sells. And then they go find another house. But you can't do that, because you go back to square one 3 months later or whatever. Yeah. So I bought the one in, I think the first one I put under contract in June, we closed in July, but in July I bought another one. And I only had to put a little bit of money down on that one too. And we did some creative financing. I took it over from this guy, and I was able to turn it around. It was in really good shape and everything. I turned around and sold it on owner financing. So I found someone who couldn't qualify for a loan. She came in with a much bigger down payment than I put down on it, and I was making money on it every single month. So I made I put like $12,000 down, and she came in with like $30,000 down. So I was 18 grand ahead. Plus I was paying his mortgage at like $1,400 a month, but I was getting from her, I was getting like $2,300 a month.
Got it. Okay.
So I was making like $900 a month. And then eventually when she went and got bank financing, then I got cashed out on the rest of it.
Yeah. On the back end side of it. So now you had 2 deals cooking pretty much at the same time. So it's not like you were waiting for another one. You actually had another one in the tuck. Okay. Got it.
Yeah. I learned from my mentor. He's like, once you put a deal under contract and you get it going, as soon as you can, go find another deal. He's like, people want to swing their own hammer and do all that. He said the moment, this is a really important lesson for entrepreneurs, the moment you swing a hammer, you make what a guy swinging a hammer makes. Well, you can hire that guy for 10 or 15 bucks an hour. He's like, as a real estate investor, you make hundreds of dollars an hour. Don't trade hundreds of dollars an hour type of work for $15 an hour work, right?
Oh, that's really good advice. That's really, really good advice. Because the moment you decide to do that, you become that guy now.
Yeah, you're a handyman, and not even a good one, because that wasn't my trade. I mean, I knew about construction, but it didn't mean I'm as good as a regular handyman.
Yeah, because he's in the trenches every day.
Yeah, he's got all the right tools. He knows what's going on. He can get discounts for supplies, all that stuff. So that was really a really important distinction for me. Was I am a deal finder. I'm a problem solver. I'm not a handyman.
Got it.
maybe I got to go out and do a little bit of handiwork myself, especially if the guy's going to overcharge you to come out and do something you can do for $20 and he's going to charge you 300 because he's got to drive across town and
Whatever. Yeah.
quote it and all that. Yeah. So things like that, I did do a little bit of that kind of work, but I was really focused on the fact that I need to do the high paying work because that's what I want to be, the high paying person. It doesn't mean I was above it. So for a year or two, I did a lot of the odds and ends, and I did the high paying work. I really focused on that.
So you had 2 deals, you did that. Did you get the shot in the arm? Like, yes, I'm in the business now. I'm making a living doing not behind a cubicle. Did you feel like this is what I'm going to be doing for the rest of my life now?
You know, the third deal was actually the one that like the lights really went on. So I did those first 2 deals, and then I found another deal, was working with my mentor. She said, go buy this deal. And I was like, I don't know. I think it needs a lot of repairs, but it's a really good deal. And she's like, I will buy this one from you. So there's something in real estate called wholesaling.
Mm-hmm.
You put something under contract and then you sell the rights to that contract to someone else. So I remember this very clearly. I went to this gal's front door. I went in, saw the property. I signed it up. I closed the deal or signed the contract. I walked to the corner. My mentor gave me a cashier's check for $15,000. I signed the contract over to her and I walked off. And I was like, I just made $15,000.
And you didn't do anything. You just literally just
I was
switching
like,
papers.
Yeah. And that was when the lights went on. And I was like, I can do this. I've done 3 deals now. I can really do this. And that really helped because then that was in like October, November. And that got me through the holidays with some money and some other things. And that would have been another scary time if I didn't have that last deal to kind of, just get through the holidays. So at that point I was like, holy cow, like I'm really an investor. I need to kind of take that next step up. I reinvested some of that money into more marketing, found more deals, and that's kind of how it goes. Right.
Yeah.
And
kind
the
of
rule
rinse
is,
and repeat.
yeah. And the rule is if you have more time than money, then you have to do some of the work. But if you have more money than time, you need to start hiring people to do it. Right. So that you can stay in that high income as much as you possibly can. Sometimes you don't have a choice, but yeah.
But at that point, did you feel like I'm an investor? This is what I'm going to be doing? Because I know initially when you went into it was like, this is going to be making the same amount of money that I was doing grinding the phones. And it's a stepping stone. When did you really feel like, okay, this is no longer a stepping stone. I'm a business owner. I'm in this game.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I'd gone to a training or two. And I knew some people who were making really good money, a couple $100,000 a year. And I was like, wow, this is like a real business. I can make a real living at this. So yeah, I was very, very excited about it. And I could see that this might be what I do forever because listen, real estate, there's probably never been a better vehicle for creating wealth.
Yeah.
So I didn't know all that at that time, but I was starting to really see it. I was like, wow, this is cool. And, yeah. So at that point I was definitely hooked and I thought for the foreseeable future, at least this is what I'm going to do.
Got it. So the foreseeable future happens. How long are you in real estate at this point until things start going in a different direction? Because as we know, you're big life financial. So when does things take a turn?
I would say, so that was 2001. I would say 2005. I really had a machine going. We were doing 20 to 35 of these, 2 or 3 a month houses, like clockwork. And I had a couple of employees and honestly, I got bored with it. I mean, we had it all dialed into where it was like, okay, we've got style 1, style 2, or style 3 of all the interior decoration. These are the cabinets that match these fixtures that match these doors. So we kind of had like a darker, a lighter, and like a more exclusive type of setup to literally where we just hand it to a contractor, give us a quote to redo this house in this style.
Got it. So it was systematized to like a T.
Everything was really systematized. I had tons of marketing out there. I mean, I was spending like $15,000 a month in marketing, but we were buying 2 or 3 deals, which was going to create for us probably $50,000 to $75,000 of income. And then I had a couple, had my overhead.
So at this point, you're making way more than $80,000 a year than what you were doing before.
Yeah, I would say at the top I was making, I think I had a year where I made 350, 370.
Got it.
But a bunch of years between 250 and 350,000.
Got it.
Like
so you were living a pretty good life at that point.
Yeah, I mean, I was only like 31 or something, and I was like, this is amazing. Like I don't even know how to spend all this money, right? I mean, I'm sure you could, but
But you
like
just
I'm not a go buy a super expensive car kind of guy. I bought a house, but it was like a $600,000 house, but I didn't need like a multi-million dollar house or any of that kind of stuff. So yeah, I mean, I was really fat and happy, but I kind of was bored.
okay.
I
Because
just
it
wanted
was
more.
kind of
Yeah.
running without you at this point. The system was so dialed in.
Literally.
Yeah.
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 There was times I didn't even go into the office for a week at a time.
Yeah, I understand that feeling 100%. You just like it's working. No,
Yeah.
like nothing I can do can mess this up. So with that boredness, are you thinking or plotting on something else at this point, or are you just kind of riding it out?
Yeah. So this is going to sound really cheesy, but I was like, what I really want to do? I really want to help people, right? Like I liked in the beginning that we were helping people out of tough situations and stuff. But pretty soon you realize that's like 1% of the business and the other 99% is managing a house,
Yeah.
right? So I wasn't working with people that much. And so I kind of wanted to learn how to be like a life coach, right? And now I know that's like crazy and cliche, but back then it was kind of a new thing.
Yeah.
And I was like, I want to help other business owners. And I had mentored a handful of people in becoming real estate investors, and I really loved that, helping them through their journey. So I hired a coach and started meeting with him once a week. And he was kind of a spiritual slash business coach. He's a
Okay.
guy who does kind of spiritual coaching for a lot of guys on Wall Street. And
Got
so
it.
I started working with him, and it really like started opening up a lot of that arena. And about that time is when 2008 came around, 2007, 2008, and
Got it.
things
Yeah.
got
The
really, really
economy started getting
bad.
funny. So at this
You
point,
just couldn't sell the houses.
your business is running, but you couldn't move the property. You're investing in your education again to go into something different, and the
Mm-hmm.
market starts taking a complete turn.
Yeah, yeah. And I was also in an accident right around that time. So basically, I broke my femur. I'm laying in bed. The market crashes. Banks stop lending. I've got, I think, 16 properties going at that time that are in the middle of being fixed. Half my contractors are tightening up on cash, so they run off with money and are hard to get a hold of. And it was a pretty bad avalanche there. And I basically, we were able to sell most of them, but I was losing money all along the way. So over about 18 months there, from 2000 late 2007 into the middle of 2008, I just lost a couple $1 million. It
Wow.
all got vacuumed up.
So
So it was tough.
you're at the top of the world, and now you're like going back down. What do you do with your coaching at this point? What do you do? How do you make a next transition?
Well, so I was doing a little bit of coaching for some people, and I was doing some marketing coaching because I got really fascinated with marketing while I was doing my real estate business, which is part of the reason I was successful. And then I got a good friend of mine. I wasn't making any money. I mean, I was making money, but not nearly enough. He said, "Hey, I've got an insurance business down here in Houston, Texas. There's no recession here. Oil and gas is still doing great. Come down here, help me build this business. You know about business, you know about building and training employees, you know about systems. Like, I need your help." So I move out there. I'm like living on his couch for like 2 months until we get an apartment together. And I started working with him, and that's kind of what transitioned me a little bit to the financial side. I did that for about a year, and then another really good friend who knew that I was good at a lot of things and had spent a ton of money developing myself with business training and personal training and
Yeah.
all these other things along the way. I probably spent like $150,000 over those 4 or 5 years just on becoming a better me, a better business person, a better human, a better everything.
I'm glad you
Right.
touched on that because that was something I was going to ask you a little later down the line. I always tell people you should invest in yourself when it comes to education, right? Like buy a
100%.
course, buy a coach. Like what you're
Uh-huh.
doing is you're buying someone else's experience and timeline, and
Mm-hmm.
they're going to propel you much faster. For
Yeah.
the 10 years of mistakes that they made, now you're going to jump right on their shoulders and be able to see everything else really quickly. What
Yeah.
made you jump into training so much? Because a lot of people see the price tag. Oh my God, $1,500. I'm not sure if I have this. Do I put this on a credit card? Is this going to make my life better? And then they don't do it. What made you want to invest in personal development for yourself?
So like the one trainer I was telling you that I worked with, he really, I was paying the guy $200 a month, but my sales went way up. So I I paid for the training, but I made a lot more because of the training. So that started getting me thinking, the more I learn, the more I make. And then I did the real estate thing, spent the $1,500. And then I also went to a course in person, about $2,500. So I was about $4,000 in, but then I was able to flip a couple houses, and I was like, okay, so that $4,000 has now made me 30. Then I bought another course that was like a $6,000 training that I went to, which was kind of the really big one. It was like 7 days, and it was really intensive in real estate. And when I was there, they started really pushing this idea: you need to develop yourself. Here's a sales training guy. Here's a corporate entity structuring guy. Here's a negotiations guy. And so I started paying for some of their courses too. And that just really got me going down the road of that. And some of that was mindset stuff. And some of that was, like I said, sales tactics. And some of that was more advanced, specific, like how do you sell houses really quick? How do you market to buy houses without spending Coca-Cola dollars?
Yeah.
Right. All of that kind of stuff. So I really started going down that world. And once you open up that door and you're like, I put X in and I get X times 10 back, like how many dollars do I want to put in? Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Every dollar in is $10 out, or every dollar in is better relationship, better health, better quality of life, better mindset, more peace of mind. You know, you start to feel that, and it becomes sort of the upward spiral. So it became very easy for me to spend that, especially when you're making $30,000 or $40,000 a house. It's real easy to go, well, if I buy this $5,000 course, I mean, if it helps me buy one house in the next 5 years, it's probably worth it.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's gonna pay itself back, and you've seen the actual results in it. And I recommend it to everybody. I even say, if you don't have the big bucks, like go on Udemy, go somewhere and go get a course and learn, because you're just buying someone else's mindset and headspace. So now you're in Houston, and you're helping your friend out. Your next friend calls you and says, I know you got to do a lot of other things. What's your next steps after that?
Well, he basically said, I want you to come be a financial coach for business owners. I know you've been doing the insurance side. I know you know finance because of all the real estate stuff you've done. Real estate investing. You've done all this mindset training. There's also a spiritual component. You've done a bunch of that. He's like, you're like the perfect guy. It's so hard to find someone who can do all the financial stuff, but can also do like this purpose-driven
mindset
stuff. So he brought me in, and I mean, out of the gates, they were putting 8 to 10 new clients a week on my calendar, and I was getting like $1,200 a pop. So all of a sudden, I'm like making $10,000 a week coming in, like boom, boom. Wow. And I had to do all the work. I had to meet with each of those clients 10 to 12 times. So I was making, $100, $150 an hour, but immediately I just had a ton of cash, and I was like, I love this. I get to help people. This is awesome. And I went really deep into that, and it was going really, really well for a while. Then there were some structural changes there. And the long and the short of it is I did that for 5 or 6 years. They kind of cut our pay a little bit because someone came in who was a consultant and said, you shouldn't pay them so much and blah, blah, blah. We can replace these guys for dirt cheap, which they found out later wasn't true. But but we took some pay cuts. So I was making pretty good money at that.
But it kind of
loved the work.
It led to what you wanted to do when you were at the tail end of like your real estate. You wanted to help others and coach others. So it was like almost like a perfect fix.
It really was. For a while there, I was just like, this is my dream job. I get to do finance. I get to do purpose stuff. I get to help people. I get to use all the skills I've learned. Like I really, really loved it. But it got to a grind, and there's definitely a point where you're doing it and you're like, I'm kind of making an hourly wage. There's a ceiling on that.
Yeah.
And so I ended up going back and doing a little bit more real estate at some point just to kind of catch a breather. And then I realized I want to do this, but I want to do it for myself, because working with houses after helping people, once again, I was just like, not my jam.
You don't feel that same joy or that connection to it. Got it. It's like utilitarian. You know how to do it, so you can, but it's not something you massively love to do.
I was doing it for the money. Yeah. Because I, as a coach, I was making $150,000 a year, which is good money, but it wasn't like, I was like, I know I'm worth a lot more than this, and I am working my butt off, and I'm helping to build someone else's company, which I didn't mind, but I didn't have time to build my own. And at some point I was like, I want to have a little more control over my life. They were great to me. They did so many good things. So I don't want to complain. I wanted that next tier up.
Got it. So is that when you said, all right, it's time to do Big Life Financial. I want to do my own thing and go out there and swim in your own waters.
Yeah. So I went back into real estate, and about a year into that, I was just like, the fulfillment's not here. This is killing me. I'm making money. But
Yeah.
so it took about a year to phase out of that and get to where I could really open up Big Life Financial. There was, once again, about a 6-month period where I was kind of doing both, wrapping up real estate because I thought we were at the top of the market, like 2016 ish.
Yeah.
Just because the market had been going up for like 9 or 10 years, right? 8 or 9 years. So I really thought we were getting close. I didn't want to go through that whole thing again. So I was like, I'm getting on a different boat here. I believe in this other stuff. And so I started working on Big Life Financial at that point. And it took me about 6 months to kind of get in that boat, and another 6 months to really get it profitable. So about a year.
Got it. So how do you get, you need to get all these certifications. When were you getting certified for like financial stuff? Because, you need to get your Series 7B and all these other things that go along with it. So were you doing that while you were doing real estate?
Yeah. So while I was doing real estate, I took some time. You don't know this about me, but like, I don't believe in the stock market for most business owners. I think it's a big pile of smoke and mirrors for most people. It's totally gambling with their money. So I didn't get any of those kind of licenses.
Okay.
But yeah, we started working a lot on taxes, and we teach something called the infinite banking strategy, which requires like life insurance products. And we do a specific thing that helps people to put their money in a place where they'll get a return similar to what they'll get in the stock market.
Yeah.
But it's totally liquid. It's got guarantees behind it. And it always goes up. So you don't have the ups and downs. So it just becomes this amazing cash building vehicles for business owners. So you have the money for your business if you need it. If opportunities come along, you've got cash. If emergencies come along, you've got cash. And if you're not using it, it's just growing and compounding on itself like crazy. So I love that strategy, and we do it for a ton of business owners. But that's the main licensing I had to get as far as that went. And I was all my study at that point, because I'd done so much real estate that I didn't need to study that. I mean, I could have continued to learn, but I really was studying financial stuff, reading books every day, listening to multiple podcasts a day from a couple of key people who teach this style of strategy called prosperity economics.
Got it. We and I spoke briefly about this. A friend of mine told me about this book, like What Would the Rockefellers Do, or How the Rockefellers Built It. Is that the similar concept? Yeah,
that's the book we give away. The author is my best friend.
Okay, got it. Yeah. And so that's like building your own financial systems and kind of going from there.
Yeah. So we teach all of that stuff, plus a whole lot more. But that's the foundation. If people don't know where to put their money, or if they just want to grow their money, we think that's a million times better, especially for entrepreneurs, because 401ks and IRAs and all that stuff suck for business owners. You can't get to your money.
Yeah, and it ties up your money. It doesn't give you a chance to move around quickly if you need access to it or not. Got it. So now, where's Big Knife Financial? What kind of clients and business people do you guys help now?
Well, I mean, we can't help anybody, but it seems like I have 4 markets that I'm really dialed in on. Real estate investors, of course, right? Because I know all about that.
It's your niche.
Yeah, lived and breathed it for 8 or 9 years. Dentists, chiropractors, and auto shops. Those seem to be where. Yeah, so when I worked as a coach, we did a ton of dentists and a ton of chiropractors. So I had deep roots in those, lots of experience, lots of contacts. And then the auto shop thing, a good friend of mine just started hiring me to do these presentations on the Rockefeller concept, right? I call it the money maximization model. Teaching that to these guys and talking to them about tax breaks and different things, because most of them are getting smashed on taxes and don't know why. So I just started doing trainings for that group, and now we've got, more than 1,000 of them on our list. But in addition to that, I've probably got 30, 40, 50 clients in that industry now. Chiropractic and dentistry, we've got even more than that. But
got it. So this financial model that you guys use, is this something that people have to get in contact with you for you to find out? Because I know my audience is like, what is he talking about?
Yeah. So, the concept is widely known as the infinite banking concept. I just wrote a huge article on Medium about it. I mean, it's like, I put it in a Word document. It was like 37 pages, but I really tried to do my best to explain how it works in writing. But you really need to work with an agent who understands it, because there's a ton of people who sort of kind of read a book, heard about it, whatever, but they don't get it. Like, this is our specialty, is what we do. So I would highly recommend, there are a couple hundred agents out there who get it, but there's also several 100,000 who have no clue, and they'll tell you they know, but they don't. It's not what they do. Right. So yeah, we're one of the people who gets it.
Is there a threshold for people that what they should be making before they even get in contact with you?
Yeah. So almost anybody can do it. You really, like, the low end, you probably need to be able to save $300 a month.
Okay.
You can do it for less than that, but at $300 a month, the efficiency gets really good. And then the more you put in, the better it gets. But in the very beginning, yeah, if you're putting $300 in a 401k or an IRA, which most people are, if they're saving at all, you can totally implement this system. Yeah. And the more you put in, the faster it grows and the better it does. But yeah.
Got it. Okay. So now, I just know I got to ask for my audience. My audience, there's a lot of people who suffer from fear, right? That's
just being human.
Yeah. They are so afraid they might have something that they have going on the side, but they're just so afraid to jump in and take that big plunge. What advice would you give them? Because you've done this transition, not just once, but you've done it multiple times. So how would you deal with fear and fear with transition?
Well, the quote that I remember, I actually heard this from my best friend. I don't know where it came from, but everything you want in life is on the other side of fear, right? But I also believe this. These are a couple of things that kind of come through my mind. The first one is confidence comes from doing. You're never going to get unafraid until you just do it and do it and do it. Just like the cold calling I had to do. But that's where the growth is. And so you have to ask yourself, what do I really want in my life? And knowing that what I want is different than what I have means I'm going to have to change. And I'm going to have to do things I've never done before. And by definition, scary things are things you've not done before, right? So you're just going to have to do scary things. Like, there's no way around it. You either stay where you are and stay in the pain that you're in, or you take on the pain of doing scary things that won't be scary for very long. So you can either stay in pain long term, or you can do it short term. So I just have always chosen to rip that Band-Aid off and move forward. And I know this about people starting and going into business. The only way it doesn't work is if you give up. If you stick with it long enough, you will become successful. It's a steep learning curve on the front end. I won't sugarcoat it. You're going to get punched in the nose. You're going to get some scratched up knees or whatever. But if you were afraid of that, you would have never ridden a bike. You would have never played a sport. You would have never
drove a car.
Yeah. You would have never done anything. So you have the choice of living in fear or living in possibility. And I find that living in possibility is so much more powerful, because good things will happen. All your brain's looking for is the bad stuff, right? Yeah. That's the survival instinct. And you just have to remember, my brain's thinking of all the things that can go wrong. It's not looking at all the things that can go right. So focus on, what are the things that can go right? Why am I doing this? What do I want? And take the action aligned with what you want, knowing that before you're good at it, you're going to be bad at it. So just start sucking.
Yeah.
Just start sucking.
That's such solid advice. Thank you so much for that, because that's 100% on what it is. How has entrepreneurship changed your life, for the good and for the bad?
Yeah. So for the good, well, let me start with the bad. At times in my life, there's been some instability. There's been some uncertainty, some really hard years of trying to figure out, what do I want with my life? And everybody looking at you saying, why don't you just go get a job? And you're thinking, because if I go get a job, I might throw myself off a bridge. Like, that's just not what I want out of life, right?
Yes, exactly.
It's like everybody looking at you saying, why don't you just marry the wrong person? And you're like, because it's a terrible idea for me.
I'm going to commit myself to something I really don't want to do.
Yeah. Because I think you can create your own wonderland, or you can create your own prison. Mm-hmm. Right. And a lot of people, if you chase the money, most of the time you create your own prison. So you really have to look at, what do I want to do with my life? And how do I monetize that? Knowing that what you want to do with your life needs to create value for others. If you're just talking about, I want to just go to music festivals, well, you better learn how to be a music festival vendor or something.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, if I had to do something that produces value in the world, what do I want to spend my time on? what's a cause worth fighting for? What's work that would make a difference, whether I got paid or not? And that's a good place to start. And then once you kind of flesh that out and look for the opportunities within that, then you focus on the skill sets. Then you're into, I'm starting to build some confidence. I'm getting past some of the scary stuff. But in the beginning, you just have to commit to, this is what I want with my life. And I know that there's going to be a trade-off. I'm going to have to give some things up to get what I want.
Yeah.
And am I willing to make that trade and be honest with yourself?
Got it. And how has entrepreneurship changed your life for the better?
For the better. So those same deepest, darkest, hardest moments are where the brilliance comes out, and when you really start to get what's important to you in life, and you really start to focus on value creation, and you get to create. I just love being in control of the fact that I can make sure that I take care of clients. I can make sure that, working for a big company, I hated it because you sell them a product or they'd get a lease or a loan. And if your company doesn't want to honor something, or they have a policy that, screws the customer over and you didn't know about it, or the machine breaks and now they can't make their payments and they just foreclose on them. Like, you didn't have any control.
Yeah.
You're working with a big company. And I just love being in a position to do the right thing for my clients, being able to honor my word. To me, that was just the most powerful thing.
Yeah, that's one of the biggest things I hated about corporate, when you have to do the handoff. You do I bring you in, I brought you here, I did all the massaging to make sure that you deliver. And now I have to hand you off to a dingbat who has no idea what I just did to bring you here.
And may not care about you. Yeah,
exactly. And he or she's going to drop the ball, and there's nothing you can do about it. It's like, this is just a system that we're in. And when you control it, you control the entire pipeline, and you can control exactly the result as for the client on the other side of it. So I definitely understand that. Now, on the ratio, this is my last question. How much do you think of your life is your success in life has to do with straight up hustle? Or how much do you think it's just luck?
If those are my two options,
yes.
I think hustle creates luck, but I guess I would say 80% hustle, because hustle, if you don't do the work, you can't get lucky, right? There is some that's just straight out luck. Yeah. You did one thing one time and it happened. But what I find is, you make 50,000 phone calls, or you make, 1,000 phone calls this week, which is about what I was doing. And you find 3, 4, 5 really good potential clients, right?
Yeah.
And it's funny because you'll call nothing Monday, nothing Tuesday, nothing Wednesday. And on Thursday, you get all 5 of them and nothing on Friday.
Yeah.
Right. So did you get lucky on Thursday? I think you just averaged it out. You just do the work. And so, yeah, I also think there's a difference between pure hustle and and working smart.
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely a part of that where this is where you can be, you can put in a lot of effort, but without the mindset to kind of go behind it, you're going to get lost. And I think that's where the personal development comes from. That's where the investing in yourself, where you literally can pay for you to get smarter versus not doing anything. And I think if you, like you said, if you're moving, you'll realize where your faults are and where you can get better at and where you can invest in.
Yep. So 80% hustle, 20% luck, but even the luck came because I was hustling.
Yep, 100%. There's a quote I read, sounds a little funny, but it says, opportunity will fall in your lap if you have your lap where opportunity falls. Like, you have to kind of be there for the opportunity to fall in your lap. So if you're not there, did it really happen? So it's one of those things. So
yeah, I've heard it said, luck is where opportunity meets preparation.
Yeah.
Doing all the work is the preparation.
Exactly.
And then when the opportunity comes along, the right person picks up the phone or comes across your website or whatever, you're ready to capitalize.
Got him.
And then you got lucky.
Quote unquote. Overnight success, 10 years in the making.
Yep.
So if people want to reach you, they want to learn about your financial model and how you can help their business grow, or they're in a position where they can put away 300, 400 more a month. How can they reach out to you? Where can they find your information?
Yeah. And listen, we have people who put 10,000 a month away, right? So I don't want people to think it's limited. The two easiest ways, first one is you can download the book you were talking about, the Rockefeller book, at biglifefinancial.com/free gift, FREEGIFT. Or you can set up an appointment to talk with me. We can assess your situation, make sure it's the right fit for you. just go to biglifefinancial.com/appointment, APPOINTMENT, all lowercase in both cases. And yeah, we can talk. You can download the book and check it out and then set an appointment that way. But ultimately, getting in the conversation is the key to the whole thing. Everybody's situation is different. And even if I can't help you today, we can focus on what do you need to do so that we can work together in the future.
Got it. Perfect. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for sharing your journey along the way. What a wild ride it was. I know we summed it up in about 45 minutes to an hour, but I know it's a lot more pitfalls than that in there. But again, thank you so much for sharing your journey and inspiring someone on the other side of this.
Appreciate it.
Thank you so much for your time.